Unfortunately, in financial advising, some of the most important questions we deal with are also some of the most complicated. So I think it's the job of any great financial advisor to really be able to explain in a simple way to their clients how they should be thinking about the issue at hand in a way that they can incorporate in their own life and make the best decision for themselves. And probably one of the decisions that's the most complicated is, do you have enough to retire? Are you going to be able to live a comfortable life in retirement? What is that quote unquote number? How do you make that decision? And after 20 years of being a financial advisor and helping hundreds of families, over the years I've kind of honed that message. And I now have a way of explaining it that I think really simplifies things. And it's called a framework, and I use what I call a 2x2 grid or 4 quadrants to simplify a lot of the complication in retirement planning. Probably the most powerful framework that's been developed for retirement planning and helping people think about just high level, do they have enough money to retire? It was not developed by me, I wish it was. It was developed by a gentleman by the name of William Bengen in 1995, and it's the famous 4% rule. But today I'm going to share with you one of my frameworks for thinking about retirement and whether you have enough, and I call it Azul's 4 quadrants. So I'm in a beautiful location here today. Let's go for a walk and I'll tell you a little bit more about Azul's 4 quadrants. Actually, before I walk, let me start to explain it here. So when I went to, let's walk. When I went to business school, my undergrad was in engineering, so I did not have a lot of business experience. I did have experience at a big Fortune 500 company, and helping to run the unit that I was in. But I didn't have the general business background that a lot of my business school classmates had. And one of the first classes you take in business school is a class on strategy and how to think about strategies for companies. How do you help companies improve? And one of the core tools that you use anytime you're dealing with something complicated like that, this is what I was taught in business school, and it's proven very true in my life, is you set up what's called a 2x2 grid, right? You have an x-axis, the horizontal axis, and you have 2 factors that you're looking at, and then you have a y quadrant, axis, the y-axis, which is vertical. And the idea is, you're kind of comparing what happens when these 2 important factors, when they interact, right? There's going to be 4 combinations. If you have 2 on the x-axis and 2 on the y-axis, there's going to be 4 quadrants. And so I want you to imagine the factors that I think really matter is how much income are you going to have in retirement, and then also whether you have debt, what your liabilities are, right? Whether you have debt or no debt. And so my 2 quadrants, I want you to visualize this. Again, on the x-axis is going to be how much income you have. And just to make things simple, I'm going to give us 2 numbers. The first number is you have $20,000 a year outside of Social Security and outside of paying for healthcare. So I'm assuming healthcare costs are covered. So if you have to pay for that yourself, and let's just say it's $10,000 a year, then in order for you to have $20,000 a year, you really need 30. You're paying $10,000 for healthcare. So outside of healthcare, you have $20,000 a year to live on. And then the other category is $40,000 outside of healthcare. Now, if you're over 65 and you're on Medicare, that's it. Yes, there's a cost associated with it, but it's not like before you're 65, right? So on the x-axis, I want you to imagine $20,000 over here and $40,000 a year over here. And then on the y-axis, I want you to think about having debt or no debt. And by debt, what I really mean is, significant debt. Maybe you just bought a brand new car for $50,000 or $60,000 and you financed the whole thing. I think of $50,000 or $60,000 as being significant debt. If you have $1,000 that your balance you're carrying on your credit card, get that paid off. But I don't think of it as significant debt. So you have significant, and mortgages are what most people have in the significant debt category. Now, if you're down to, the last 12 months of payments, it's not that significant, maybe you think of yourself as no debt, or you think of yourself in 12 months. So again, debt and no debt, $40,000 a year after healthcare costs and $20,000 a year. Now, obviously, where we want to be is in this upper right-hand quadrant, where we have $40,000 or more, I should say $40,000 or more a year after healthcare costs, and we have no debt. That's the freedom quadrant. That's what gives us a lot of choices, a lot of flexibility. It's really up to us whether we keep working or we don't keep working. Now, the next best quadrant to be in, right? The question is, would you rather be making have income in retirement of $40,000 a year? Would you rather have that with some debt, right? That's the next quadrant down. Or would you rather go next door? Would you rather go across over here where you'd have $20,000 a year, but no debt? And so you can really see the impact. If you had to choose, and I think a lot of 20 and 30-year-olds and even early 40-year-olds should think about these quadrants, 20,000, 40,000, debt or no debt, and ask themselves when they're 50, which quadrant do they want to be in? When they're 55, which quadrant do they want to be in? And then how do they get there, right? If you want to be debt-free by the time you're 50, right, you want to be debt-free here, and you want to have $40,000 a year in income outside of healthcare, well, maybe you buy a smaller house, right? Or maybe if the market, like we just went through a period where the real estate market was very, very strong for, several years in a row, maybe you sell your house and you rent. None of this is financial advice. I'm not suggesting that any of this is right for you, but I'm giving you a framework for you to think about it yourself. Again, $20,000 a year, $40,000 a year, debt or no debt. Which quadrant do you want to be in? And then, if you're still in your 40s or early 50s, work towards making that happen. One of the reasons that people like real estate is because of the income, right? Maybe that's going to help you in this quadrant down here, but it's going to hurt you because it's going to give you debt, right? So you make these trade-offs. And for me, this isn't the right answer for everybody, right? But for me, I like dividend-paying stocks, and I like having my mortgage paid off and making the trade-offs to make that happen, including, during the COVID, when real estate prices, I live in a ski town, a lot of people moved into my ski town, and the prices of houses went up. And I told my wife, actually, we lived in a house that was a little challenging to sell. It was a larger house. It was about 5,000 square feet, but it was on a small lot. It was the biggest house on the smallest lot in our neighborhood. And the other thing is it had a basement apartment. And a lot of people did not want a basement apartment. They were okay if there was like a movie room down there or something, but they didn't want a basement apartment in their house. So, I think regardless of what age you are, thinking through that 2x2 matrix in which quadrant you want to be in. For me, I want to be debt-free. So I'm looking up here at the no debt quadrant and looking across and saying, can I get myself $40,000 a year outside of Social Security? Can I get myself $20,000 or up to $40,000 up here? I'd rather be in that upper left-hand quadrant than down below with debt. But that's me. It's not the right answer for everybody. And if you enjoyed today's video, I know you're going to enjoy this video up here in the upper right-hand quadrant that talks about average retiree income, and this video down here in the lower right-hand quadrant that talks about 5 reasons to retire as soon as you can. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.